The Minneapolis winter hit like a judgment, wind slicing through layers of inadequate clothing as Maya Thompson stood outside the locked door of what used to be her home. Four car seats lined the snow-dusted porch behind her, each one holding a sleeping infant bundled in blankets she'd gotten from the hospital's charity closet. Her hands shook as she tried the key again, already knowing what she'd find. Changed locks. Of course Marcus had changed the locks. Her phone buzzed for the 100th time that morning, all from the same number she didn't recognize, all going straight to voicemail because her battery was at 3% and she needed to save it for emergencies. As if this wasn't already an emergency. As if standing outside in 12-degree weather with 4 3-week-old babies wasn't the definition of crisis. She heard them before she saw them. Marcus's voice carried through the pristine neighborhood, laughing at something his mother said. Maya turned, her body instinctively positioning itself between the car seats and whatever was coming, and watched her husband of 4 years pull into the driveway with Diane Thompson in the passenger seat. Marcus looked different. His locks were freshly twisted, his designer coat new, his expression somewhere between annoyed and disgusted as he climbed out of his BMW. The same BMW Maya had co-signed for back when they were still pretending to be a team. "What are you doing here?" He didn't even glance at the babies. "I told you not to come back. This is my house, Marcus. Our house. Where else would I go with our children?" Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. 3 weeks of postpartum exhaustion and hospital stress had stripped away her ability to cry. Now she just felt hollow. "Your house." Diane emerged from the car like a queen descending from a throne, her fur coat ridiculous and ostentatious. "Girl, my son paid for this house." "You contributed what? Your little nonprofit salary?" "Please." Maya had heard this speech before. Had endured years of Diane's subtle and not-so-subtle implications that she wasn't good enough for Marcus, wasn't light-skinned enough, wasn't submissive enough, wasn't anything enough. But she thought, foolishly, that giving Marcus children would change something. That becoming a mother to his babies would earn her some kind of protection. She'd been wrong. "Marcus, the babies need to come inside. It's freezing out here. We can talk about whatever this is, but they need warmth and clean diapers and those aren't my babies." Marcus said it flatly, matter-of-factly, like he was commenting on the weather. "I already had the paternity test done while you were in the hospital. None of them are mine." The words hit Maya like a physical blow. "What are you talking about? I've never been with anyone but you. You know that. We've been together since college. Then how do you explain that?" Diane pointed at the car seats with a manicured nail, her voice dripping with theatrical disgust. "You think my son doesn't know what his own children should look like? You think he's stupid?" Maya followed Diane's gesture and understood with sick clarity what they meant. All 4 babies had emerged darker skinned than Marcus expected, darker than his light brown complexion, closer to Maya's deep mahogany. In the hospital, she'd watched his face change when the nurses brought them out one by one. Watched him count on his fingers like he was doing math, like melanin followed some kind of genetic formula he'd memorized. "Skin color doesn't work like that," Maya said, her voice rising despite her exhaustion. "Your grandfather was dark-skinned, Marcus. I've seen the pictures. This is just genetics." "Genetics." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You know what? I don't care. I already filed for divorce. The papers should be here by next week. My lawyer says since the paternity test proves they're not mine, I don't owe you anything. No child support, no alimony, nothing. You can't just..." Maya stopped, looking at the 4 tiny humans sleeping behind her, unaware that their father was trying to erase them from existence. "Marcus, please. Even if you don't want to be with me anymore, these are your children. They need their father. They need a father who's actually their father." Diane moved closer, her perfume overwhelming in the cold air. "Why don't you go find whoever you were sleeping with and ask him for help? Because my son is done cleaning up your mess." One of the babies started crying. Then another. Within seconds, all four were wailing in that particular newborn way that demanded immediate attention. Maya turned to them instinctively, her body responding to their distress even as her mind struggled to process what was happening. "You need to leave," Marcus said, already turning back toward his car. "Take whatever you came for and go. I'll call the police if you're still here in 20 minutes. Where am I supposed to go?" The question came out desperate, and Maya hated herself for it. "I have 4 newborns and nowhere to stay, and you emptied our bank account." "My bank account," Marcus corrected. "The one I've been funding for 4 years while you played at running your little community center. You want money? Get a job." He was in his car before Maya could formulate a response, Diane settling into the passenger seat with a satisfied smile. They pulled away, leaving her standing there with 4 screaming infants and the dawning realization that she'd just lost everything. Her phone died as she tried to call her best friend Jessica. The baby's cries were getting more frantic, that newborn panic that came from hunger and cold and the general overwhelm of existing. Maya's body ached from childbirth, her incisions sight burning despite the painkillers she'd run out of yesterday. Her breasts were painfully full, leaking through the cheap nursing pads she'd bought at the dollar store. She needed to feed them. Needed to change them. Needed to find somewhere warm before they all froze to death on this porch. Maya grabbed 2 car seats in each hand, ignoring the way the movement pulled at her healing abdomen, and started walking. She had no plan, no destination, just the primal need to protect the 4 tiny humans who depended entirely on her for survival. 3 blocks later, her arms gave out. She set the car seats down on a bus stop bench, her vision blurring with exhaustion and something that might have been tears if she had any tears left. The babies were still crying, their small faces scrunched with distress, and Maya felt herself fracturing into pieces she didn't know how to put back together. A black Mercedes pulled up to the curb. Maya tensed, ready to grab the babies and run if necessary, but the window rolled down to reveal a woman about her mother's age, elegant and concerned. "Are you all right, sweetheart?" The woman had a slight accent, Caribbean maybe, and kind eyes. "Do you need help?" "I'm fine," Maya lied automatically. "Just waiting for someone." The woman looked at the 4 crying infants, at Maya's hospital bracelet still on her wrist, at the way she was swaying on her feet. "You just had these babies. What are you doing out here in the cold?" Something in the woman's voice broke through Maya's defenses. Maybe it was the maternal concern, or maybe Maya was just too exhausted to keep pretending. "My husband locked me out. He says they're not his children because they came out too dark." The woman's face transformed, recognition and rage mixing in equal measure. "Get in the car. Right now. All of you. I don't even know you. My name is Dr. Patricia Williams, and I'm not leaving you and 4 newborns to freeze to death at a bus stop. We'll figure out the rest later. Now get in the car before I call an ambulance and make you go back to the hospital." Maya was too tired to argue. She loaded the car seats into the back of the Mercedes, Dr. Williams helping with the coordination, and collapsed into the passenger seat. The warmth of the car's heater felt like salvation. "When did you give birth?" Dr. Williams asked, pulling back into traffic. 3 weeks ago. Emergency C-section. They were premature, spent 2 weeks in the NICU before they cleared us to go home." Maya's voice sounded distant, like it was coming from someone else. "Except we don't have a home to go to anymore." "What about family? Parents?" "My mom died when I was 18. Cancer." "My dad." Maya stopped, the old shame rising up. "I don't know where my father is. He left before I was born. My mom never talked about him except to say he was someone important and she was just a mistake." Dr. Williams made a sound that might have been sympathy or understanding. "And your husband's family?" "His mother hates me. Always has. She wanted Marcus to marry someone lighter, someone from a better family. She just tolerates me because I was pregnant, and now even that's over since Marcus decided the babies can't possibly be his." They drove in silence for several minutes, the babies finally calming as the car's motion and warmth soothed them. Maya watched the city pass outside her window, recognizing the shift from her working-class neighborhood to something much more affluent. "Where are we going?" "My house," Dr. Williams said simply. "You need rest, the babies need feeding, and I need to make some phone calls. After that, we'll figure out your next steps." "Why are you helping me?" "You don't know me." Dr. Williams glanced over, something complicated in her expression. "Let's just say I know what it's like to be abandoned by someone who should have protected you. And I know what it's like to be judged for the color of your skin by people who should know better." The house Dr. Williams pulled up to wasn't a house at all. It was a mansion, the kind of place Maya had only seen in magazines, with a circular driveway and what looked like an actual fountain. She must have made a sound because Dr. Williams smiled. "My husband is a surgeon. We've been very fortunate. Come on, let's get these babies inside before they start up again." The next few hours passed in a blur of feeding schedules and diaper changes. Dr. Williams had a guest room that she quickly converted into a makeshift nursery, pulling out blankets and pillows and setting up a changing station with practiced efficiency. She made calls while Maya nursed the babies in rotation, her voice low and urgent in another room. Maya fed Amara first, the biggest of the 4 girls at 5 pounds, then Zora and Imani together while Dr. Williams gave little Kai a bottle of the formula someone had donated to the hospital. She watched her daughters eat with the focused intensity of newborns, their tiny hands flexing and gripping, and felt the weight of impossible responsibility. 4 babies. No money. No home. No husband. "Maya?" Dr. Williams appeared in the doorway, her phone still in her hand. "I need to tell you something. It's going to sound strange, but I need you to trust me." "Okay." Maya was too exhausted to be wary. "Those phone calls you've been getting all morning. The ones you haven't answered. They're from your father." Maya's laugh was bitter. "That's impossible. I don't have a father. My mother was very clear about that." "Your mother's name was Sarah Thompson, correct? She worked as a teacher before she got sick?" The use of past tense made Maya's chest tight. "Yes." "How do you know that?" "Because 30 years ago, Sarah Thompson had a relationship with Jonathan Chase, my cousin. And when she got pregnant, Jonathan's family made it very clear that she wasn't welcome in their world. They offered her money to disappear, to never contact him again, to raise the baby alone." Maya felt the room tilt. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying Jonathan Chase is your father. And he's been looking for you for 30 years. Your mother never told him she turned down the money, never told him where she went. She just vanished. He's had investigators searching, but Sarah was thorough. She changed her name, moved states, made herself impossible to find. Why are you telling me this now?" Dr. Williams sat down carefully, her movements measured. "Because this morning, Jonathan's investigator finally found you. Hospital records from the birth. He's been trying to reach you all day, and when you didn't answer, he called me because he knew I lived in Minneapolis. He asked me to find you, to make sure you were all right. And you just happened to drive by while I was at a bus stop with 4 newborns?" "No, Maya. I've been driving around your neighborhood for 3 hours looking for you. The investigator gave me an address, but you weren't there. I was about to call the police when I saw you at that bus stop." Maya looked down at Imani, who'd fallen asleep mid-feed, her small mouth slack and satisfied. "I don't understand. If this Jonathan Chase is my father, why now? Why does he suddenly care after 30 years? He always cared. He just didn't know where to look." Dr. Williams pulled out her phone, showing Maya a photo of a distinguished black man in his late 50s, his features echoing some of Maya's own. "This is Jonathan. He's the CEO of Chase Technologies. Maybe you've heard of them?" Maya had heard of Chase Technologies. Everyone had heard of Chase Technologies. They were one of the largest tech companies in the world, worth billions, with a reputation for innovation and social responsibility. And this man, this stranger with her eyes and her nose, was supposedly her father. "I can't deal with this right now," Maya said, her voice cracking. I can't process a father I never knew while my husband is trying to abandon our children. It's too much. I know. But Maya, you need to understand something. If Jonathan Chase is your father, if he acknowledges you as his daughter, you and these babies will never have to worry about money or housing or Marcus's cruelty again. You'll be protected. Protected by a man who let my mother raise me alone in poverty? The anger surprised Maya with its intensity. Where was this protection when my mom was working 3 jobs to keep us fed? Where was he when she was dying and we couldn't afford the good treatment? Dr. Williams was quiet for a moment. Those are fair questions. Questions you should ask Jonathan directly. He's on his way here now, if you're willing to see him. But Maya, I need you to understand something else. Marcus's family has money and influence. If they decide to make trouble for you, to claim you're an unfit mother or to contest custody even though Marcus is denying paternity, you'll need resources to fight back. Jonathan can provide those resources. Maya looked around the guest room, at the 4 car seats lined up like soldiers, at her daughters sleeping peacefully for the first time in hours. She thought about Marcus's face when he told her to leave, about Diane's satisfied smile, about standing in the cold with nowhere to go. All right, she said finally. I'll see him. But I'm not promising anything. Jonathan Chase arrived 2 hours later in a convoy that looked more like a presidential motorcade. 3 black SUVs pulled into Dr. Williams's driveway, and Maya watched from the upstairs window as a tall man emerged from the middle vehicle, flanked by what were clearly security personnel. He moved like someone used to command, his posture perfect, his suit probably worth more than Maya's car had been before Marcus repossessed it. But when he looked up at the house, when his eyes found the window where she stood, Maya saw something that made her breath catch. Fear. This powerful man looked absolutely terrified. Dr. Williams brought him upstairs, leaving them alone in the guest room with the babies. Jonathan stood in the doorway like he was afraid to come closer, his hands shaking visibly. Maya, he said, and his voice broke on her name. My God, you look just like your mother. So I've been told. Maya kept her voice neutral, her arms crossed protectively. Dr. Williams says you're my father. I am. I know that's not enough, that saying it doesn't make up for 30 years of absence, but it's true. And I need you to know that I never stopped looking for you. Never stopped hoping I'd find you both. My mother's dead. Has been for 10 years. So if you were hoping for some kind of reunion, I know. Jonathan's face crumpled. I found out 3 months ago when the investigator finally tracked down her death certificate. I wanted to die, Maya. Knowing she was gone, knowing I'd never get to apologize, to explain what happened, he stopped, visibly pulling himself together. But then I found out about you. That Sarah had a daughter. That I had a daughter. And I've spent every day since then trying to find you. Maya wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the resentment that had been building since Dr. Williams's revelation. But something in Jonathan's expression, something genuine and broken, made it harder than she expected. Why did you let her go? The question came out smaller than she intended. If you loved her, why did you let your family drive her away? Jonathan moved into the room slowly, his eyes on the sleeping babies. I was young and stupid and weak. My parents had plans for me, for the company, for the family legacy. Sarah was a teacher, working class, didn't fit their vision of who I should marry. When she got pregnant, they gave her money to disappear. I thought she took it. Thought she chose the money over me. She didn't take anything. She raised me alone on a teacher's salary, then on disability when she got too sick to work. We were poor, Mr. Chase. Like government assistance poor. Like choosing between electricity and food poor. I know. And I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for that. Jonathan finally looked directly at her. But right now, I need you to tell me what happened. Patricia said something about your husband abandoning you and the babies. I need to understand the situation so I can help. Maya told him everything. About Marcus's increasing distance during her pregnancy, about his mother's constant criticism, about the surprise of quadruplets and the terror of premature birth. She told him about coming home from the hospital to find the locks changed, about Marcus's claim that the babies weren't his, about standing in the cold with 4 newborns and nowhere to go. By the time she finished, Jonathan's hands were clenched into fists, his jaw tight with barely controlled rage. "What's his full name?" "Your husband?" "Marcus Thompson." "But I don't see what." "Marcus Thompson of Thompson and Associates Insurance?" At Maya's nod, Jonathan pulled out his phone. "I'm going to make some calls. Is it all right if my attorney comes by? I want to understand the full legal situation before we proceed." "Proceed with what?" Jonathan looked at her, and Maya saw steel beneath the grief. "With making sure Marcus Thompson regrets every decision he made today. With making sure you and your daughters never have to worry about money or housing or protection again. With being the father I should have been 30 years ago." Maya wanted to protest, to maintain her independence, to prove she didn't need anyone's help. But she looked at her sleeping daughters, at their perfect faces and tiny hands, and she knew that pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Okay," she said. "But I have conditions." "Name them." "I want to finish my degree. I was 3 credits away from my MSW when I got pregnant. I want to go back to school." "Done." "I want my own place. Not charity, not a handout. Somewhere I choose, where I can raise my daughters without feeling like I owe anyone. We'll set up a trust. Independent income, your own accounts. Whatever you need to feel secure." Maya took a breath. "And I want the truth. All of it. Why you really couldn't find my mother. Why it took 30 years. What happened that was so bad she'd rather raise me alone than take your family's money." Jonathan's face aged 10 years in an instant. "That's a long story. A painful one. I've got time. For baby's worth of sleepless nights ahead of me. Plenty of time for painful stories." He sat down heavily in the chair by the window. "Your grandmother, my mother, didn't just offer Sarah money. She threatened her. Said if Sarah didn't disappear, if she tried to claim me or the baby, my mother would destroy her career, her reputation, everything. She hired investigators to dig up dirt, found some trouble Sarah's brother had been in, threatened to have him arrested if Sarah didn't leave. So my mother ran to protect her family." Maya felt something shift in her understanding of her mother's choices. She ran, and she made sure no one could follow. Changed her name legally, used her middle name as her first name, moved to a different state. My investigators couldn't find her because Sarah Thompson didn't exist anymore. She became Sarah Catherine, and she stayed hidden for 30 years. Did you try? Really try to find her? For the first 5 years, I looked everywhere. Hired the best investigators, followed every lead. Then my parents told me she'd gotten married, that she was happy, that I should move on. I believed them. God help me, I believed them and stopped looking. But she never married. She told me my father was someone important who didn't want us, and she raised me to never need anyone. She was protecting you. If my parents had known about you, they would have tried to take you, to control your life, to mold you into what they thought a chase should be." Jonathan's voice was rough. "By the time they died 5 years ago, by the time I had the freedom to really search, Sarah was already gone and you were lost in the system. One of the babies started crying, then another. Maya moved on autopilot, checking diapers and preparing to feed them." Jonathan stood awkwardly, clearly wanting to help but not knowing how. "Pick up Kai," Maya instructed. "The one in the pink blanket. Support her head like this." Jonathan lifted his granddaughter with the careful reverence of someone handling something precious and terrifying. Kai stopped crying immediately, her dark eyes focusing on his face with newborn intensity. "Hi," he whispered. "Hi there, little one. I'm your grandfather. I know I'm late to this party, but I'm here now. I promise I'm here now." Maya watched him with her daughter, this stranger who was somehow family, and felt something in her chest loosen slightly. "They look just like my mother did as a baby." I found old photos in her things after she died. Same eyes, same little nose. Sarah was beautiful. Inside and out. I was a fool to let her go. Yeah, Maya said quietly. You were. But maybe you can be better now. For them. The attorney arrived an hour later with a team of assistants, transforming Dr. Williams's dining room into a makeshift war room. David something, Maya was too overwhelmed to catch his last name, was precisely the kind of lawyer you'd expect a billionaire to employ: expensive suit, perfect diction, and an air of absolute confidence. Mrs. Thompson, he began, and Maya immediately corrected him. Miss Thompson. Or just Maya. I'm getting divorced, remember? Miss Thompson, then. I need you to walk me through the timeline of events leading up to today. Start from when you found out you were pregnant and don't leave anything out. Maya recounted the story again, this time with David taking detailed notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When she got to the part about Marcus's paternity test, David's eyebrows rose. He said he had a test done while you were in the hospital. Without your knowledge? Apparently. He said none of the babies were as based on the results. That's interesting, because I pulled the hospital records with your permission, and there's no record of any paternity testing being ordered or conducted. Either Marcus is lying about the test, or he paid someone outside the hospital to conduct an illegitimate test without proper chain of custody. So the babies are his? Genetically? Almost certainly, based on what you've told me about your relationship timeline and the fact that you've been faithful. But that's not the point. The point is Marcus Thompson made a legal claim about paternity that he can't actually prove, and he used that claim to abandon 4 newborns in freezing weather. That's criminal child endangerment. Jonathan spoke from across the room where he was pacing with Zora. Can we press charges? We can certainly file a police report. Whether the DA pursues charges is another question. But Maya, I need you to understand something. If we go after Marcus criminally, this is going to get ugly. His family has money and connections. They'll fight back. Let them fight, Maya said, surprising herself with her own vehemence. He threw me and 4 newborns out in the cold. He deserves whatever consequences come from that. David nodded approvingly. Good. Now, let's talk about the divorce proceedings. I'm assuming he filed? He said papers would be here next week. And he'll claim the children aren't his, so he owes no child support. Except we're going to demand a court-ordered paternity test with proper chain of custody. When that proves he's the father, he'll be liable for support. Substantial support for 4 children. I don't want his money, Maya started, but Jonathan cut her off. It's not about what you want. It's about what those babies deserve. Marcus Thompson is going to take financial responsibility for his children whether he wants to or not. They spent the next 3 hours planning strategy, David outlining the various legal avenues they could pursue. Civil suits for abandonment and emotional distress. Criminal charges for child endangerment. A countersuit in the divorce demanding full custody and child support. By the time they finished, Maya's head was spinning. This is too much, she said, looking at the stack of papers David wanted her to sign. Maybe I should just let Marcus go. Take the divorce and move on. And let him tell everyone his version of events? Jonathan shook his head. Let him claim you cheated and the babies aren't his. Let his mother spread rumors that will follow you and these girls for the rest of their lives? No. We fight back, and we make sure the truth is known. Maya looked at her daughters, all 4 sleeping peacefully after their evening feeding. Amara had her fist in her mouth. Zora was snoring softly. Imani and Kai were curled toward each other in their shared bassinet, already showing the twin connection that would define their relationship. Okay, she said finally. We fight. But I want something in return. Name it, Jonathan said. I want you to help me understand who you are. Who my mother was before everything went wrong. I want to know the story you've both been too afraid or ashamed to tell me. I deserve to know where I come from. Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. It's not a pretty story, Maya. My family wasn't kind to your mother, and I was complicit in that unkindness by being too weak to stand up to them. I've spent my whole life with only half the story. Whatever the truth is, it can't be worse than the abandonment I've already lived through. All right. But not tonight. Tonight, you need to rest. When's the last time you slept more than 2 hours? Maya tried to remember and couldn't. Before the C-section, I think. Then that's what we're doing now. Patricia has agreed to let you stay here while we sort out housing. I've hired night nurses to help with the babies so you can recover properly. And tomorrow, when you're rested, I'll tell you everything. Deal? Night nurses? Maya shook her head. I can't afford, you're not paying. I am. And before you argue about pride or independence, remember that those babies need a mother who isn't collapsing from exhaustion. This isn't charity, Maya. This is me trying to be even fractionally useful after 30 years of absence. Maya wanted to argue, but her body was betraying her, exhaustion making her sway on her feet. One night. We'll talk more about the arrangement tomorrow. One night, Jonathan agreed, but something in his expression said he had no intention of this being temporary. The night nurses arrived at midnight, 2 women with decades of experience who moved through the guest room like they'd been born for this work. Maya tried to stay awake, to maintain control, but within minutes of lying down, she fell into the deepest sleep she'd experienced in months. She woke to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows and the sound of babies cooing contentedly. For a moment, Maya panicked, the disorientation of new motherhood and recent trauma making her forget where she was. Then memory returned in a rush: Marcus's betrayal, Dr. Williams's intervention, Jonathan Chase claiming to be her father. Maya checked her phone, charged overnight by someone, and saw 17 missed calls from Jessica and a string of increasingly frantic texts. She called back immediately. Maya. Oh my God, I've been trying to reach you since yesterday. Marcus called me saying you'd abandoned the babies and taken off. I knew it was bullshit, but where are you? Are you okay? Are the girls okay? We're fine. We're staying with. Maya paused, unsure how to explain. With some people who are helping me. Marcus locked me out of the house, Jess. Changed the locks while I was in the hospital and tried to claim the babies weren't his. Jessica's response was a string of profanity creative enough to make Maya smile despite everything. That sorry excuse for a man. His mama too, I bet she was right there supporting this mess. Where are you? I'm coming to get you right now. I'm in Edina, at a doctor's house. Dr. Patricia Williams. But Jess, there's something else I need to tell you. Something big. Bigger than your husband abandoning you and 4 newborns? Maya took a breath. My father found me. My actual biological father. The one my mom never talked about. He's been looking for me for 30 years. The silence on the other end stretched so long Maya thought the call had dropped. Jess? I'm here. I'm just processing. Your father, the one your mom said was someone important and left before you were born, just showed up out of nowhere? He's Jonathan Chase. The CEO of Chase Technologies. Jonathan Chase. Like, billionaire tech genius Jonathan Chase. That Jonathan Chase. Yeah. That one. Maya, what the actual hell? Your father is Jonathan Chase and you've been living in a 1-bedroom apartment and taking the bus everywhere? He didn't know about me. My mom disappeared before I was born, changed her name, made herself impossible to find. His family paid her off to leave, but she never took the money. She just ran. Jessica was quiet again. So what happens now? Now we figure it out. He wants to help me with Marcus, wants to set up trust funds for the girls, wants to be involved in our lives. It's overwhelming and weird and I don't know how to feel about any of it. How do you feel about it? Maya looked at the 4 bassinets where her daughters slept peacefully, fed and clean and safe. Grateful. Suspicious. Angry at my mom for keeping this secret. Angry at him for being weak enough to let his family drive her away. But also, she paused, searching for the right words. Also hopeful. Maybe for the first time in a long time. Then that's enough for now. One day at a time, right? That's what you always told me when I was going through my divorce. One day at a time, Maya echoed. Starting with today, which involves figuring out what happens next. Jonathan knocked on the doorframe, carrying a tray with breakfast and looking uncertain. I heard you talking. Is this a bad time? Jess, I'll call you later. Someone's here with food and I'm starving. After hanging up, Maya accepted the tray, scrambled eggs, toast, fresh fruit, orange juice, and tried not to feel overwhelmed by the simple act of being cared for. You didn't have to do this. I wanted to. The nurses said you fed the girls at 4 and 6 but didn't eat anything yourself. You need to keep your strength up. Jonathan hovered awkwardly. Can I sit? It's not my house. Patricia said to treat it like it is. She had to go to the hospital for rounds, but she'll be back this afternoon. He sat carefully on the edge of the bed, maintaining a respectful distance. How are you feeling? Like I got hit by a truck that was also an emotional disaster and a legal nightmare. Maya ate a forkful of eggs, her body reminding her that she'd barely eaten in 2 days. But better than yesterday. The sleep helped. Good. That's good. Jonathan watched her eat, his expression a complicated mix of emotions. Maya, I know this is strange and uncomfortable, but I need you to know something. I'm not trying to replace your mother or rewrite history. I'm just trying to be present now that I finally can be. My mom used to say that showing up was half the battle. That a lot of people talked about what they'd do, but only some actually did it. Maya met his eyes. So yeah, you're here. That counts for something. She was right. Sarah was always right about the important things. Jonathan's voice was rough with old grief. I should have fought harder for her. Should have stood up to my parents. Should have been brave enough to choose her over their approval. Why didn't you? Because I was 23 and scared and stupid. Because I believed them when they said it was for the best, that Sarah would be happier without me, that a clean break was kindest. Because I was weak, Maya. There's no better answer than that. Maya finished her eggs in silence, processing his honesty. Tell me about her. About my mom. Not the parts where everything went wrong. I want to know what she was like when you knew her. What made you love her? Jonathan's face transformed, years falling away as he remembered. She was brilliant. Teaching 5th grade, but she should have been a professor. She could explain the most complex concepts in ways that made them accessible without being condescending. She loved words, loved reading, could quote poetry at random and make it relevant to whatever was happening. She used to read to me every night, Maya said softly. Even when she was exhausted, even when she was sick. Said stories were how we made sense of the world. She told me once that books were proof that human beings were worth saving. That we could create beauty and meaning even in the face of suffering. Jonathan smiled at the memory. She was idealistic in the best way. Believed people could change, could grow, could be better than they were. Did she believe you could change? The question hung between them, weighted with decades of what-ifs and might-have-beens. I don't know. By the time I understood how badly I'd failed her, she was already gone. I like to think she would have forgiven me eventually. That she would have wanted you to know me. But I'll never know for sure. One of the babies started crying, and Maya moved automatically to check on them. Amara, the earliest riser, demanding her morning feeding. Jonathan watched as Maya lifted her daughter with practiced ease, settling into the nursing chair by the window. You're good at this, he observed. Being a mother. I'm terrified every second of every day that I'm doing it wrong. That I'm going to damage them somehow just by being myself. Maya adjusted Amara's latch, wincing slightly at the discomfort. But yeah, I'm trying. That's all anyone can do. Try, and show up, and love them enough to keep trying when it gets hard. Jonathan stood, moving toward the door. David called this morning. Marcus filed for divorce early, trying to get ahead of the narrative. His lawyer is claiming abandonment and adultery on your part. Maya's laugh was bitter. Of course he is. Can't admit he threw us out, so he's making me the villain. We're countersuing. We'll have the paternity results in 48 hours, and then we'll file criminal charges for child endangerment. Marcus Thompson's life is about to get very complicated. Good, Maya said, surprising herself with the viciousness in her own voice. He deserves complicated. The next 2 days passed in a strange limbo of legal preparations and new parent exhaustion. Maya fed babies, changed diapers, tried to heal from major surgery, and gave statements to lawyers and police. The night nurses helped keep her sane, but she was hyper-aware that this was temporary, that eventually she'd need to figure out her actual life. Jonathan visited daily, always bringing food and always asking permission before holding his granddaughters. He was gentle with them, reverent even, but Maya could see the grief in his eyes every time he looked at her. She represented 30 years of loss, a daughter he'd never known, a woman who looked like the love of his life but was essentially a stranger. On the third day, David arrived with the paternity results and an expression of grim satisfaction. All 4 girls are Marcus Thompson's biological children with 99.9% certainty. We have him. So now what? Maya asked, bouncing Zora who'd been fussy all morning. Now we file the countersuit and press criminal charges. The DA has agreed to prosecute based on the evidence of abandonment. Marcus is going to be arrested. The reality of that statement hit Maya harder than she expected. Arrested. Actually arrested. For child endangerment, yes. Leaving 4 newborns and their postpartum mother in freezing weather with no shelter constitutes criminal neglect under Minnesota law. He's looking at potential jail time, though he'll probably plead out to probation and community service if he's smart. What about his mother? She was there, she supported what he did. Harder to prove criminal culpability, but we can certainly name her in the civil suit for emotional distress and reputational damage. Diane Thompson is about to discover that social standing doesn't protect you from consequences. Jonathan had been quiet during this exchange, but now he spoke up. Maya, I need to tell you something. About Marcus and his family. What? Thompson and Associates Insurance was trying to secure a contract with one of our subsidiaries. It was in the final stages of negotiation, would have been worth millions to them annually. Jonathan's expression was cold. I canceled it this morning. Pulled all of Chase Technologies' business from their firm. You did what? Marcus Thompson hurt my daughter and endangered my granddaughters. There are consequences for that. Professional consequences, personal consequences, social consequences. He wanted to destroy your life. I'm making sure he understands what destruction actually looks like. Maya should have felt vindicated. Should have been glad that someone was finally making Marcus pay for his cruelty. Instead, she felt a complicated mix of satisfaction and discomfort. That's going to hurt a lot of people at his company who didn't do anything wrong, she said slowly. It's going to hurt Marcus's bottom line and his professional reputation. The other employees will be fine, there are plenty of insurance companies in Minnesota. Jonathan's voice was firm. Maya, you can't worry about protecting the people who tried to destroy you. That's not compassion. That's self-sabotage. He's right, David added. Marcus is going to paint you as the villain no matter what you do. Better to control the narrative from a position of strength than try to play nice and hope he'll show mercy. Maya looked at her daughters, all 4 sleeping peacefully in their bassinets, unaware of the legal warfare being waged on their behalf. I just want them to be safe. To grow up knowing they're loved and protected. Then let us handle Marcus, Jonathan said firmly. Let us be the bad guys so you can focus on being their mother. The arrest happened 2 days later, Marcus taken into custody at his office in front of his colleagues and clients. The news spread through Minneapolis like wildfire. Successful black businessman arrested for child endangerment, for newborns abandoned, estranged wife claiming paternity test was fabricated. Maya watched the news coverage from Dr. Williams's living room, Jonathan sitting beside her in silence. The cameras showed Marcus being let out in handcuffs, his face a mask of shock and rage. His mother was there too, screaming at reporters about lies and gold diggers and conspiracy. Is it supposed to feel this hollow? Maya asked quietly. Watching him get arrested should feel like justice, but it just feels sad. Because you're a better person than he is, Jonathan replied. You can recognize that someone causing you pain doesn't make their pain meaningless. That's empathy, Maya. It's a strength, not a weakness. Empathy doesn't pay bills or provide housing. No, but it makes you the kind of mother those girls need. Someone who teaches them that you can be strong and kind simultaneously, that justice doesn't require cruelty. Maya's phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Maya? It's Diane. Marcus's mother. The voice was clipped, strained. We need to talk. I don't think we have anything to discuss, Mrs. Thompson. Don't hang up. Please. The plea sounded physically painful for Diane to say. I need to tell you something about Marcus. Something I should have told you years ago. Maya looked at Jonathan, who nodded. She put the phone on speaker. You have 5 minutes. Marcus isn't, he's not. Diane took a shaky breath. He's infertile. Has been since he was 19. Testicular cancer, removed one testicle, radiation damaged the other. The doctors said his chances of natural conception were less than 1%. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. What? He never told you because he was ashamed. Because he thought you'd leave him if you knew. When you got pregnant naturally, with quadruplets no less, he panicked. Convinced himself there was no way they could be his. So he had a fake paternity test done? Maya's voice was rising. He threw me out based on a lie. He had a real test done. But he bribed the lab to fake the results showing he wasn't the father. He wanted proof for the divorce, wanted to avoid child support. Diane's voice cracked. I went along with it because I've spent 30 years protecting my son from his own mistakes. But this time I can't. This time I won't. Jonathan leaned forward. Why are you telling us this now, Mrs. Thompson? Because Marcus is going to go to prison if you press charges. Because I watched him throw a woman and 4 babies into the cold and I said nothing. Because I'm tired of being the villain in my own life story. Diane sounded exhausted. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know the truth. After Diane hung up, Maya sat in stunned silence. Jonathan broke it gently. David needs to hear this. It's evidence of fraud, conspiracy, multiple felonies. I know. Maya felt numb. All of this because Marcus was too proud to admit he was infertile? All of this because he couldn't be vulnerable with me? Pride makes people do terrible things. Weakness makes them cruel. Jonathan put a hand on her shoulder. But this isn't your burden to carry, Maya. You didn't cause this. Marcus's shame and Diane's enabling did. What happens now? Now the DA has evidence of conspiracy and fraud. Marcus is looking at serious prison time unless he cooperates fully, admits to everything, agrees to whatever custody and support arrangement we demand. Maya looked at the 4 bassinets, at her daughters who would grow up hearing this story someday. I don't want revenge. I want them to have a father who can look them in the eye without lying. Then we'll make sure that's what happens. Marcus will have to earn the right to be in their lives, will have to prove he's capable of honesty and responsibility. And if he can't do that, they'll have a grandfather who will teach them what integrity actually looks like. The words hung in the air, a promise and a commitment. Jonathan Chase might have failed Maya's mother 30 years ago, but he was here now, fighting for his daughter and granddaughters with every resource at his disposal. Thank you, Maya said quietly. For showing up. For fighting. For being here. I'm never leaving again, Jonathan replied. Whatever happens with Marcus, whatever comes next, I'm here for the duration. You and those girls are my family, and I protect my family. 3 weeks later, Maya moved into a townhouse in St. Paul that Jonathan had quietly purchased through one of his holding companies. It wasn't a gift, he'd insisted, but an investment that she could buy out whenever she was ready. The lie was transparent but appreciated. Maya's pride needed the fiction of independence even as she accepted help. The night nurses transitioned to daytime help as Maya recovered from her C-section. She was nursing all 4 babies now, a logistical nightmare that required precise scheduling and enough calories to fuel a small army. Jonathan visited daily, usually bringing food and always asking to hold his granddaughters. Marcus took a plea deal that avoided prison but included 3 years probation, mandatory parenting classes, and a strict custody schedule that started with supervised visits. He'd agreed to pay substantial child support, enough that Maya could have lived comfortably without Jonathan's help. But the money felt tainted, connected to Marcus's shame and lies in ways that made her uncomfortable. The real surprise came from Diane. Marcus's mother showed up at Maya's door 2 months after the arrest, carrying an enormous box of baby supplies and wearing an expression of desperate determination. "I don't expect you to forgive me," she said immediately. "I don't forgive myself. But I'd like a chance to know my granddaughters. To be in their lives if you'll let me." Maya should have slammed the door in her face. Should have told her that forgiveness wasn't available for the kind of cruelty Diane had enabled. But she thought about her own mother, about how Sarah had spent 30 years alone because of someone else's family's pride and judgment. "You can come in," Maya said carefully. "But we're going to establish some ground rules first." Diane agreed to everything. No criticism of Maya's parenting. No comments about skin color or family background or respectability politics. No undermining Maya's authority with the girls. If she wanted to be in their lives, it would be on Maya's terms. "I was wrong about you," Diane admitted, sitting in Maya's living room with Imani sleeping in her arms. "Wrong about what matters, wrong about what makes someone worthy of love. I let my prejudices blind me to the fact that you were exactly what Marcus needed, someone genuine and kind who saw him as he was." "He didn't want someone who saw him as he was," Maya replied. "He wanted someone who'd let him pretend to be someone else. That was never going to work, no matter how light my skin was or how respectable my family." "You're right. And I enabled that pretension because it was easier than confronting my own biases." Diane looked down at Imani, her expression soft. "She's beautiful. They all are. I'm sorry I ever implied otherwise." The apology didn't fix everything. Couldn't erase years of casual cruelty and deliberate exclusion. But it was a start, a foundation on which to build something different. Jonathan's integration into their lives was smoother, partly because he asked for nothing and offered everything without strings. He hired contractors to childproof the townhouse, set up trust funds for all 4 girls that would cover education and medical expenses for life, and created a structured support system that let Maya maintain her independence while never feeling alone. More importantly, he was present. He learned to change diapers and prepare bottles and soothe crying babies. He showed up for pediatrician appointments and took the 2 a.m. feeding shift when Maya was too exhausted to function. He read books on child development and transracial families and the particular challenges of raising black daughters in America. "I can't give you back the 30 years I missed," he said one night, holding Amara while Maya nursed Zora. "But I can be here for the next 30. Can show up every day and prove that I've learned what matters." "You're doing good," Maya told him, meaning it. "They adore you. Look how Amara just settles when you hold her. She's got good instincts. Knows I'm completely wrapped around her tiny finger." Jonathan smiled down at his granddaughter. "All of them do. I'm putty in their hands." Maya watched him with her daughters and felt something shift in her understanding of family. It wasn't perfect. Couldn't erase the past or fix what was broken. But it was real and present and growing stronger every day. 6 months passed. The girls grew from tiny newborns into actual babies with personalities and preferences. Amara was the leader, always grabbing toys first and demanding attention. Zora was the thinker, studying everything with serious concentration. Imani was the charmer, all smiles and giggles. Kai was the sensitive one, feeling everything intensely and needing extra comfort. Maya went back to school, finishing her MSW with Jonathan's support and a flexible schedule that accommodated 4 infants. She defended her thesis on support systems for single mothers facing poverty, with her daughters in the front row, held by Jonathan and Dr. Williams and Jessica. Marcus's visits remained supervised, and he seemed genuinely remorseful in a way that surprised Maya. He'd started therapy, was working on his own issues with shame and masculinity and the toxic messages he'd internalized about what made someone a man. "I'm not asking you to take me back," he said during one visit, watching the girls play on their activity mat. "I know that ship sailed. But I want to be the father they deserve, even if I wasn't the husband you deserved." "Then show up," Maya replied. "Keep coming to these visits. Keep doing the work. Prove you can be consistent." "I will. I promise I will." Maya didn't know if she believed him, but she was willing to let time tell that story. The girls deserved a chance to know their father, to make their own decisions about that relationship as they grew. The day Maya walked across the stage to receive her master's degree, Jonathan sat in the front row with all 4 girls in an expression of such profound pride that it made her eyes sting. After the ceremony, he hosted a celebration at his house, the first time Maya had seen where her father actually lived. The estate was ridiculous, the kind of place that appeared in architectural magazines, but Jonathan had transformed one entire wing into a nursery suite designed specifically for his granddaughters. 4 cribs, a changing station, a play area, all color-coordinated and perfectly appointed. "When did you do all this?" Maya asked, stunned. "Been working on it for the past 3 months. I wanted them to have space here, to feel like this is their home too." Jonathan looked uncertain. "Is it too much?" Patricia said it might be too much. "It's perfect," Maya said, meaning it. "They're going to love it." The celebration included Dr. Williams, Jessica and her family, David the attorney, even Diane who'd been slowly earning her way back into their lives. They ate catered food and watched the girls play and talked about the future with the cautious optimism of people who'd survived something terrible and come out stronger. "Speech," Jessica called out, raising her glass. "The graduate needs to make a speech." Maya stood, holding Kai who'd been fussy all evening, and looked around at the people who'd become her chosen family. 6 months ago, I was standing in the cold with 4 newborns and nowhere to go. I thought my life was over, that I'd lost everything that mattered." She paused, emotion threatening to overwhelm her. "I was wrong. I hadn't lost everything, I'd just lost the wrong things. The wrong partner, the wrong assumptions, the wrong ideas about what family means and who deserves love." Jonathan was crying silently, not even trying to hide it. Maya met his eyes and smiled. "My mother spent 30 years believing she had to be alone to protect me. Believing that connection meant danger, that love came with conditions she couldn't meet. And maybe in her circumstances, with the people she was dealing with, that was true. But I don't have to live in her fear anymore. I have people who show up, who fight for us, who love these girls without conditions or expectations. I have a father who missed 30 years but is determined to be present for the next 30. I have friends who never doubted me, even when my own husband did." Maya shifted Kai in her arms. "I have 4 beautiful daughters who are going to grow up knowing they're wanted and loved and protected. Who'll never doubt their worth because they'll see it reflected in every person around them. Who'll understand that family isn't about biology or perfection, it's about showing up and trying and loving people enough to keep trying when it gets hard. So thank you. All of you. For showing up. For fighting. For teaching me that I was wrong about what I'd lost. I didn't lose everything that mattered. I found it." The toast that followed was loud and teary, everyone raising glasses and promising love and commitment. The girls, sensing the emotion in the room, started crying in sympathy, and suddenly everyone was laughing and passing babies and the moment transformed into chaos. Later that night, after the guests left and the girls were asleep in their new cribs, Maya stood in the nursery with Jonathan and just breathed. "Thank you," she said quietly. For all of this. For finding me. For not giving up. Thank you for letting me in, Jonathan replied. For giving me a chance I didn't deserve. For being willing to build something new instead of holding on to old anger. My mother would have liked you, I think. Once she got past the hurt and anger. She always said people could change if they wanted to badly enough. I hope I'm proving her right. Jonathan looked at the 4 sleeping babies, his expression soft. I hope I'm becoming someone she'd be proud to have as her daughter's father. You are, Maya assured him. You really are. 3 years passed. The girls grew into toddlers with strong opinions and boundless energy. Amara appointed herself the boss of everyone. Zora developed an obsession with books that reminded Maya painfully of her mother. Imani charmed everyone she met, collecting admirers like trading cards. Kai remained sensitive but was learning to channel that sensitivity into art, covering endless pages with colorful scribbles. Marcus remained in their lives, though not in the way he'd probably hoped. His supervised visits became unsupervised, but he never asked for more custody than the agreed-upon schedule. He'd remarried, a woman named Tasha who was kind to the girls and seemed to genuinely love Marcus in spite of his flaws. She's good for him, Maya told Jonathan one day, watching Marcus and Tasha play with the girls at a park. She doesn't let him get away with his nonsense, but she loves him enough to help him be better. That's what good partners do, Jonathan replied. Challenge us to grow while loving us through the process. Diane had become a constant presence, the kind of grandmother who showed up for every recital and milestone. She'd started volunteering at the community center Maya now ran, the expansion of her old nonprofit, funded by Jonathan's foundation but operated independently by Maya. You've built something remarkable, Diane told her one day, watching a group of single mothers attend a parenting class. This place is changing lives. That was always the goal, Maya replied. My mom used to say that the system was designed to keep people trapped, so we had to build our own systems. Our own support networks. She sounds like she was an incredible woman. She was. Still is, in a way. I see her in my daughters, in the work I do, in the choices I make every day. The biggest surprise came when Maya fell in love again. Unexpectedly and completely, with Elena Rodriguez, a social worker she'd hired for the community center. Elena was patient and funny and brilliant, and she loved the girls with an easy acceptance that made Maya's chest ache. Is this okay? Maya asked Jonathan nervously before introducing Elena as more than just a friend. I know it's not what you probably expected, Maya. I spent 30 years regretting that I let other people's expectations dictate my choices. I'm not making that mistake with you. Jonathan's voice was firm. If Elena makes you happy, if she's good to you and the girls, that's all that matters. The introduction went perfectly. Elena charmed everyone at the family dinner Jonathan hosted, engaging with Diane about her volunteer work and making Dr. Williams laugh with stories from social services. Most importantly, the girls adored her, climbing into her lap and showing her their toys with the easy trust of children who recognized genuine affection. You're sure about this? Elena asked later, after the girls were asleep and they were alone in Maya's townhouse. It's a lot, 4 kids, complicated family dynamics, an ex-husband who's still figuring his life out. I'm sure, Maya replied. Are you? I've never been more sure of anything. You and those girls? You're exactly what I've been looking for without knowing it. They married a year later in a small ceremony at Jonathan's house, surrounded by chosen family and the people who'd fought beside Maya through the hardest period of her life. The girls were flower girls, wearing matching purple dresses and taking their responsibilities very seriously. Marcus attended with Tasha, having earned his way to that invitation through years of consistent presence and genuine growth. Diane cried through the whole ceremony, her prejudices finally conquered by love and time. Dr. Williams gave a toast about found families and second chances that left everyone teary. Jonathan walked Maya down the aisle, his hand steady on her arm, his voice breaking when he gave her away. Your mother would be so proud, he whispered. Of the woman you've become, of the family you've built, of everything you've survived and overcome. She'd be proud of you too, Maya replied. For showing up. For choosing us every day. The reception was loud and joyful, the girls dancing with abandon and the adults celebrating love in all its complicated, beautiful forms. Maya looked around at her chosen family, at Jonathan teaching Amara to dance, at Diane making Zora laugh, at Marcus playing peekaboo with Kai, at Elena holding Imani like she'd been born for it, and felt complete in a way she'd never experienced before. She thought about that day in the cold, standing outside a locked house with 4 newborns and nowhere to go. She thought about how certain she'd been that her life was over, that she'd lost everything that mattered. She'd been wrong. So completely wrong. She hadn't lost everything, she'd lost the things that were holding her back from finding what she actually needed. Happy? Elena asked, pulling Maya onto the dance floor. Impossibly happy, Maya replied. Grateful and exhausted and still terrified most of the time, but yeah. Happy. Good. Because you deserve it. All of it, the love, the family, the happy ending. Maya looked over Elena's shoulder at her father dancing with her daughters, at the family she'd built from the ruins of abandonment and betrayal. It's not an ending, she corrected gently. It's just the beginning. The real beginning. And as the music played and the people she loved celebrated around her, Maya Thompson Rodriguez knew with absolute certainty that she was right. This wasn't the end of her story. It was just the first chapter of something new, something better, something built on love that showed up every day and proved itself through action rather than words. Her mother had been right about so many things, but she'd been wrong about one crucial point: sometimes connection wasn't dangerous. Sometimes it was exactly what you needed to survive. Sometimes family wasn't the thing that trapped you, it was the thing that set you free. Maya had learned that lesson in the hardest way possible, but she'd learned it completely. And now she got to teach it to her daughters, to show them every single day that they were loved and wanted and worthy of all the good things life had to offer. Marcus had tried to abandon them in the cold, had tried to erase them from his life like they'd never existed. Instead, he'd given Maya the push she needed to find her real family, to claim her real identity, to build the life she'd been afraid to imagine. She'd never be grateful for his cruelty. But she could acknowledge that sometimes the worst moments led to the best outcomes, that sometimes you had to lose everything to discover what actually mattered. And what mattered, Maya had learned, was showing up. Fighting for the people you loved. Building families out of choice rather than obligation. Teaching your children that their worth wasn't determined by other people's failures to see them clearly. The girls would grow up knowing all of this. Would understand that their father had made terrible mistakes but was trying to be better. Would know their grandfather had been absent for a generation but showed up when it counted. Would recognize that family could be complicated and painful and still worth fighting for. They would be okay. Better than okay. And Maya would make sure of it, one day at a time, with all the fierce love and protection her mother had shown her, with all the support and resources her father provided, with all the partnership and understanding Elena offered. This was her family now. Imperfect and complicated and absolutely perfect in its imperfection. And Maya wouldn't change a single thing.